Hello, Crixis here and welcome everyone to this super exciting sketchbook tour. Today I am going to share with you 3 different sketchbooks from 3 different art challenges I did in the past. Hopefully this will be inspiring and encourage you to work on your own sketchbook work. So without further ado, grab yourself a cup of tea or coffee or any heartwarming drink, like this video, and let's see the sketchbooks. These are 3 sketchbooks I'm going to show you, and what all of them have in common is that they are sketchbooks I used to create art challenge illustrations. So I'm gonna start with this one first. And this is, I'm gonna zoom in slightly. So this is Sketchbook by Print Origin. It's Handmade sketchbook maker here in the UK, and I will link the shop down below in case if you're curious. I think the paper that has been used for this sketchbook is Bockingford, and this is the sketchbook I used to create Calmtober. And for those of who don't know, Calmtober is a drawing challenge I am hosting. I think this will be my 4th year doing so. And in 2023, I decided to work in my sketchbook to create kind of sketchbooky sketches before I tackle final illustrations. And I also wanted to challenge myself and ask if this can still be my work if I don't draw characters in these illustrations. And basically how I tackled this sketchbook was I sketched the prompt, and for this one the prompt was hedgehog. And I just used really minimal art supplies. I used graphite pencil and watercolor. I think it was 1 watercolor diluted with water. And after that, I did this illustration, which is basically inspired by this sketchbook page. So this is Strathmore 300 gram tone tan paper, and I used acrylic marker and colored pencils for it. So the next one I did was this bear sketchbook spread, and I really like how I just composed it, and it just allowed me to freely explore different ideas. And this is the illustration I sketched afterwards, being inspired by this sketchbook spread. And the next one, this is Rainstorm, and I had an idea to sketch a cat kind of looking outside of the window and waiting for the owner to come. So this is kind of my interpretation, and in the end it looks a little bit like this. And I really love using my sketchbook to explore different ideas. I think it's just really nice to look back at it, and sometimes I notice something I haven't noticed before and I can grab it and transform it into future illustrations. So this is kind of like visual diary for me. And I really encourage everyone to use Sketchbook to explore ideas, because it's really fun to just see where you can go with that. And also sometimes I sketch these little thumbnails as compositions. I don't have illustration for this one anymore with me because I was selling the originals and this was sold. The same goes with this owl artwork. I don't have the original anymore, but this was the sketch. And this is approximately how the composition looks for the final artwork I did. I had so much fun sketching this one. I really, really enjoyed it. And I also love how it looks in the sketchbook. This is the next one, and it's called Fireplace. And I really wanted to create illustration where there's a dog near the fireplace, super like cozy and comforting illustration. And I really like this pose. And I really wanted to sketch German Shepherd. So the final illustration from these sketchbooks, this is how it turned out. I think for some of the illustrations, I actually prefer my sketchbook work rather than the final artwork, because this is where I kind of got the idea how I want to tackle the artwork. And this is the cabin prompt, and I really wanted to sketch a fox And this is kind of a little doodle in sketchbook and some sketches with the houses. This is how the illustration looks in the end. The next one I sketched was moon. And I also don't have original artwork from this anymore, but I really enjoyed just thinking that I could sketch a deer or little fawn. And fawns have like these tiny little spots which could look like stars. So I did like nighttime illustration with the fawn. I really enjoyed this prompt, and I really like also these compositions. They kind of remind me a little bit of Mark Rothko in some ways. And yeah, I really enjoyed this simple way of sketching, just using pencil and one color. I think then I can really emphasize on line work and just focus on composition in general. This is the squirrel, and these are composition sketches. In the end, I did this illustration, which is really, really fun. And yeah, then the next one I did was wood. And I sketched woodpecker and bird feeding table. And I also really love how I sketched with a brush and I didn't use pencil before. So this is kind of my really loose interpretation of the woodpecker. And this is how the illustration looks in the end. I think like this background, tone 10 background is really nice because it's a mid-tone. So then I can either work on lighter value or darker value. And the next sketchbook spread is this one. And this is the blanket prompt I did for the art challenge. And I also really was in that phase, I think, into quilting. And I really like these quilted stars. So I think from that moment onwards, I was sketching them here and there throughout my work. And this is how the illustration looks. I really like that the rabbits are white and they stand out much more. The next sketchbook spread is my interpretation of hot drink. And I wanted to have like a mole sitting inside the mug and drinking a cup of tea. I also don't have the original from this anymore, but I had so much fun sketching this prompt. And I really like this sketchbook spread in general, how it's composed. And this is the next one. It's called Hug. And yeah, it's really interesting how I started with sketching like a mouse and then people hugging and then girl hugging a dog and then sketching a ferret and then thinking like how I could do this illustration. And then this is where I ended up with doing like a night scene. And yeah, I think this is like just really clearly you can see how the idea is developing from something completely different to actually getting composition and then working on the final artwork. And this one is tent. And I was just sketching different tents and then different frogs. And yeah, there is like a frog here and then frog sitting on a tent. Something I don't sketch a lot. So this was definitely really interesting experience and experiment for me. And yeah, and then I sketched mushroom. And there was a lizard drinking a cup of tea underneath a mushroom, because why not? The final illustration is this one. And as you might have noticed, a lot of these illustrations, they have different sizes. I was trying to be free with what format I chose. And yeah, it was really fun to explore it in these little thumbnails. And then afterwards, I had a lot of space in this sketchbook, so I actually decided to sketch some of the colors, watercolors I have in my collection, because this paper is really good with showing the granulation. And this is end paper, because I was thinking to make a zine out of this sketchbook, which I actually did. I guess little self-promo, but I have Calmtober zine from 2023, which basically consists of showing the sketchbook spread and final illustration. So in case if you want to see it in person, you can check my store out. Hashtag little self-promo. This is how I ended up this sketchbook with just a lot of color swatches. So this is the first sketchbook I want to show to you. Now let's move on to the second one. And this is actually sketchbook I made myself. This is hand-binded, and this is exposed spine binding, French link stitch, I think it's called. It's not glued in, so it's a little bit, as you can see, a little bit wobbly. I used fabric cover, and the end papers are from gorgeous William Morris wallpaper. And yeah, I just really, really love how I made it. And this is my Calmtober from 2024. So this is last year's Calmtober. And how I tackled this sketchbook here was I kind of did final illustration on this side, and on this side I sketched out the prompt, and then I did tiny little color palette. So this one is Teapot, as you can see over there, and this is my sketch. I use Handmade watercolours for this sketchbook, and it was really, really lovely experience. This is, by the way, Arch's hot press paper I used. And yes, so this is Nightingale. I sketched this with just a brush, so I wasn't using any pencils. It was really freehand. And then I did little color swatch, and this is how it looks on the other side. This is the oil lamp, and I really, really love this illustration and how it looks together. I'm just gonna zoom in actually slightly. Then the next prompt was called Beer, and I sketched beer, and then I did illustration with a girl, and this was really, really fun thing to do as well. And then the library. This one I actually filmed a video for my Patreons, and I shared behind the scenes how I created this artwork. And as you can see, these are some of the book covers with mushrooms, and then she's sitting on a mushroom and reading. And I guess little tree library. And this is the moth. To be honest, I don't like this illustration and how it looks, but I want to encourage you to embrace some of the things you don't like about your work, because that's part of the growth and process. This one, for example, I really like. So there is always going to be illustration you are not so sure about, and especially if you're doing like art challenges, yeah, it can happen. This one I wasn't that keen on, but I think the beauty of sketching art in general is you remember when you sketched it, and this was actually outside. I sketched it near the sea, and these little fragments I actually sketched from life, so it was really fun. This is called Tree. I sketched some acorns and oak leaves, and then girl sitting on a tree. This is called Vintage, and for this one I actually had this vintage jam jar, and I was just sketching these labels, and then I made the illustration. And this is herb. I really love how this one turned out. It's kind of little herb garden, and I love the color palette and composition as well. And I have done a lot of similar type of artworks like this in the past. I guess I'm really drawn to sketching scale and sketching like small character and huge like forest or herb garden. It just really excites me, and I love the feeling it gives me. This is called Star. And I guess I was playing a little bit with negative space, because in this sketchbook page you can see like these stars, and they kind of reflect some of the whiter parts of this sky color. This is Cordial. So I was sketching out the bottles, and this was really fun thing to do. And yeah, this was inspired by Anne with an E Netflix show. And then this is Envelope, and I sketched these envelopes. I actually don't usually use my sketchbooks for final illustrations, But this was the point where I actually felt a little bit less pressure, because I knew that because the final illustration is in the sketchbook, I'm not going to sell this sketchbook. So I might as well just be fine with if it doesn't go the way I plan it to go. And yeah, it was really fun to sketch final illustrations in Sketchbook. I felt a little bit less pressure. And this is the chimney. This is the last one I did for this challenge. And this is the cover I sketched for Calmtober zine. I actually don't like how it turned out, and I sketched another one. I can show it here. So this is the Calmtober zine cover. And it kind of went from this to this. So it was really, really fun thing to explore. I'm going to show it here. And these are all the colors I used for this sketchbook. And this was my main palette up until December last year. And since then I have changed my palette to make it slightly smaller. But these are the colors I was using at that moment. And this is my last sketchbook I want to share with you. But I want to share a little bit of bonus material as well. So this is where I had an idea in January that I want to create another drawing challenge. So I decided to create Ancient Woodland Drawing Challenge, which was happening in February this year. And I thought I'm going to share a little bit from this sketchbook, because I am using this sketchbook more for, I guess, more final illustrations. And this is where I sketch a lot of ideas for these prompts. And sometimes when I have time to sketch out the prompt list thumbnails, that's what I do. So I did little thumbnails for each prompt. And I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. Hopefully you can see it. I guess I'm going to share slowly my sketchbook pages and then what sketches I did to create these illustrations. So one of the reasons why I decided to work on final illustrations in this sketchbook was because I was using alcohol-based markers. And this is the medium I haven't used a lot for the past 5 years, but I used them previously. And I really wanted to go outside of the comfort zone and work on illustrations using these alcohol-based markers. And because they are not light fast, I thought I might as well use the sketchbook to work on these prompts. The first prompt, it's called Fly Agaric, which is this little red mushroom. And I actually sketched the girl like being hidden underneath a mushroom and sitting and reading something. And I knew this is what I want to do for the first prompt. So this is how it looks. I was trying to be really free with the size I want to make this illustration. And I was okay with exploring this as I go. And this is the lichen. Prior to sketching this prompt, I was sketching characters and with different poses. And there was one next to the tree. And I felt it would be really, really fun to sketch a prompt where a girl is hugging a tree and it has slightly lichen-y texture. This was definitely a challenging prompt to make, but I had so much fun doing it. And also, as you can see, these markers bleed through. So to create each illustration, I had this little piece of paper which I put in between pages so it doesn't bleed through to the next page. And yeah, I think it's really, really fun to see other side of these illustrations, like this one as well. And this is called Primrose, and this is where I changed the size of the format slightly. And I also really wanted to show visually the texture of these alcohol-based markers. I also used Derwent drawing pencils, so it was kind of combination of those two. There's a girl and kind of composition of this illustration over here. And I really love sketching these ideas before. And although now it feels really strange, like why do I sketch these on one sketchbook and final illustrations on other? I guess I'm not like used to sketching them both in one part, because usually I sketch doodles in my sketchbook and then tackle final illustrations on low sheets of paper, but in this case I did final illustrations in sketchbook instead. And this is the next one. This is called Owl. I have like little doodle over here of this owl. So this is the doodle I'm talking about. This is how I sketch in my sketchbook some of these illustrations. The next prompt was Ivy. I really wanted to make like a fairy-like girl painting a prompt in her sketchbook and having a tea nearby. And then this is the next one. I think this is called Tree Stump. And I had so much fun sketching this prompt. I think I sketched it out somewhere. Let me just see. This illustration here, this is the doodle I did to do this illustration. And it was like a small fragment. At that point, I didn't think I will do a phone. I didn't think there will be a fox also standing on this little tree stump. But what I did know was that there will be teapot and Robin sitting on top, and she was drinking tea. So I kind of explored further, but I had initial idea in my sketchbook. Okay. This was prompt called Lily of the Valley, and it's kind of like little fairy girl watering more lilies of the valleys over there. Initially, I had idea of a girl sitting on like a little leaf and just resting there, and I had like these sketches as well with a girl just sitting there. But then I had like this tiny little doodle with a girl watering, and I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. So that's how this came to be. Okay. The next one is called Squirrel. And to be honest, I wasn't sure about this illustration and how I like it. And I think I do love this fragment over here. But I'm not sure about the squirrel itself. I think it's a little bit too realistic to my liking. I sketched it over here. Little doodle of squirrel. And I thought maybe there is a girl sitting on top of a squirrel. And then I thought, oh, okay, maybe there's a girl giving an acorn to a squirrel. And then I sketched it on that side. And I was like, yeah, this is a good side. Rather than like profile, it's from the back. There was also one doodle with a girl sitting on an acorn. So this is how my brain works. And this is how it turned out in the end. The next one is called Fern. And I also had a lot of ideas for this prompt. I had a girl sitting kind of on a fern and looking somewhere. Then I had the idea of a girl resting on a fern. And then I had idea of girl waking up, and then I had this idea with a girl sleeping surrounded by fern. And this is one of these occasions where I actually prefer this sketch more than final illustration. And you know, this can happen to everyone. I think it's the freshness of this pose. It's more captured here, whereas here it looks a little bit more realistic. And as you know, I'm trying to go away from more realistic, so that's why I do prefer this sketch. But I guess it's fine. It's totally fine to not like everything you create or like sketch a little bit more. The next prompt was river, and for this one I sketched a girl next to the river, like standing, and then I sketched this girl like and touching the river. So I really like this pose, so I sketched it out. I think I also explored this prompt over here. So I was trying to get the pose right, and I kind of like this one over here, and I do enjoy this one as well. I wasn't sure with the butter how I like the texture, but I think it's really interesting artwork. It's something quite different than I would normally do things, and definitely experimentation. So even though this can be counted as final illustration, I feel this is like a sketch for maybe future work I would explore. And maybe I could try doing this with watercolors. And I think after this, I was really, really happy with all the artworks I did. Because for some of these artworks, I wasn't really sure. But I think when I did this illustration, I was like, this is something. This is something. I would love to explore this one more. And this is Common Ink Cup. And I think in this moment, I was really into sewing, which is my new hobby. One of the newest hobbies, and this is basically me sewing with a serger in the middle of the woods surrounded by Common Ink Cup. I really love this illustration. It's one of my favorites, and the only sketch I did was this one girl knitting surrounded by these Common Ink Cups, and this is a little composition in this square as well, but other than that I didn't explore this that much. I just went with the flow, and it was really fun, and I really love this artwork. And then I did this one. This is Deer, another favorite of mine. I really love the color palette. I think this is where I finally got like the feel that, oh yeah, this is actually something I love, because previously I wasn't really sure, but yeah, I really love how I made this. And I sketched like deer in my sketchbook, and then I did this one over here, and then I sketched this little dodo, which is kind of like similar, but I thought to turn the girl looking to the other side so you could see more of the back rather than front of her. And I am happy that I made this decision. I think it looks really charming that she's looking the other way and the deer is looking at us. So I was really happy about this one as well. And then the velvet shank is another illustration I really like. I wanted to have a girl looking at something and we don't know what it is. It's kind of like a mystery, I guess. And I sketched it out here. I thought maybe she's like bird watching, and at first I thought maybe she's sitting. Then I thought, no, she's standing. She's definitely standing, and then her skirt is slightly bent. And I wanted to sketch these mushrooms coming from the side of the tree. So really love this one as well. And the final one I love as well. So I'm really happy about this sketch. This is moss, and to be honest, for this one, from the first day I knew I wanted to have a girl sleeping in a moss patch. One of the sketches I did at the early beginning of this challenge was this girl and a fox, and she was sleeping and the fox was sleeping. And I stick to this composition, and I'm really, really happy how it turned out. This was the moment when I realized actually I could do more alcohol-based marker illustrations, because there were periods in this sketchbook where I wasn't sure like if I like this or not, but I just kept going. And I think this is really, really important. If you want to create artwork you will be really, really happy about, you need to create work you're not happy about. And this is what I did in this sketchbook. I explored this and I had so much fun. And yeah, I really love sketching these little ideas in just my regular sketchbook, because here I explore so much different themes and illustrations, and it just brings me so much joy to take something and then create something new out of it. This is something I have been loving ever since I started doing more illustrations, and I think sketchbooks there are so many good qualities about keeping a sketchbook. So hopefully this has inspired you to pick a sketchbook as well. Thank you so much for watching this week's video. I hope you found it inspiring and useful. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like so it can reach more people. And also, I'm going to link all the links down below, mentioning the sketchbooks and mentioning my work and website and Patreon if you want to check it out. If you want to let me know, you stay till the very end, write in the comments down below the secret word, which I put on the screen. And have a good day, evening, morning, wherever you are. And I'm gonna see you super soon. Bye everyone.